It's the Steve Deace Show, and here's what happened while we were away. Brought to you by Movement Maybe. Danish shipping giant Maersk said one of its commercial vessels successfully transited through the strategically vital Strait of Hormuz under U.S. military protection. It follows two other U.S.-flagged vessels which transited earlier this week. CENTCOM confirmed this morning the destruction of a handful more of Iranian fast attack boats. Brent and WTI crude oil prices are dropping today. And now a hodgepodge of news from all over our country. In Washington, D.C., a judge has apologized to the latest would-be Trump assassin, Cole Allen. Magistrate Judge Zia Faruqi said that he was fascinated and disturbed by Allen's treatment in jail. Allen, of course, was placed on suicide watch when he was first imprisoned. Prosecutors argued that since Allen told investigators he didn't expect to survive the alleged attack, he could be a danger to himself, but an incredulous Judge Faruqi wasn't convinced by that argument, drawing comparisons between Allen and defendants arrested for rioting at the Capitol on January 6th of 2021. He said, quote, "To me, it's extremely disturbing that he was put in 5-point restraints, a person with no criminal history. It's troubling. I've never heard of one January 6th defendant who was put in 5-point restraints or in a safe cell." He went on to say, quote,
well, I don't know what we're talking about.
"Sounds like there's a different method that's going to be needed in the future to play back the montage instead of the custom-built $600 box whose job is to do exactly that."
All right. Well, we'll talk about something here on the Steve Deace Show next. And greetings. Not a happy Tuesday. I'm Steve Deace. He's Todd Erzin. He's Aaron McIntyre. All right. And we are brought to you by our friends over at Preborn. One of the best things that you could do for Mother's Day is to convince someone to go through with being a mom. You can do that for as little as $28 with sponsoring a ultrasound that doubles a mom's chance at not committing murder against her own offspring. And you could do that as soon as today at preborn.com/Steve. Again, that's preborn.com/Steve. Make your tax-deductible donation today to preborn.com/Steve. All right, coming up on today's show, we have a lot happening on today's show. At the bottom of the hour, a new film on what happened with the scamdemic, particularly the toxic genetic injections in the military, called Duty to Disobey. We're going to talk to Captain John Frankman about that film coming up at the bottom of this hour. Fake news or not? A story that I think should have made more news than it made last week about one of these fake honeypot influencers that had gotten over 90,000 followers, had become a bit of a sensation online, even though I'd never heard of this person. It turns out the whole thing is a ruse. And it was done by an Indian man halfway across this planet. So what does this say about us? What does it say about the nature and flow of information and what we can trust moving forward? We're going to have that conversation for Fake News or Not a little bit later on. And then Pop Culture Tuesday, I'm going to discuss. I told you, hey, if it turned out that Angel got played by the movie, like everybody had said that had not yet seen it, a bunch of people said this without seeing it, just based on who the cast is. And you just can't do that based on who the cast is. Because we've seen plenty of films, we could give you all kinds of examples where they way overplayed how left-wing the film was to play to their audiences online too, right? So how about actually seeing the movie and then commenting on it? Well, I went through and did that. And I have to tell you, I was just very, very disappointed. If anything, I think some of the criticisms are from people that don't even fully understand Animal Farm as a book. Because I know we maybe say this too often. It's worse than you think it is. I mean, I was just saddened. I can't believe this made it through the screening process, to be brutally honest with you. And you guys know I love Angel Studios. I mean, they are doing the Lord's work, man, but everybody has a swing and a miss, okay? You know? I mean, this one's a stinker, and I will explain why coming up in Pop Culture Tuesday. All right, let's do this. Aaron, let's take the topics that you were going to do.
Yes.
All right, run them down for us one by one, and we'll kind of give you some bullet point analysis of what you were supposed to see a few minutes ago, if that's okay.
Yeah, fortunately, most of today's montage is not actuality driven, so not a whole lot of sound bites. So I do think we will be able to have a good conversation about this. So the story that cut off there, this Judge Zia Faruqi on Star Wars Day, nonetheless, apologized to the latest would-be Trump assassin, saying in passing, quote, "At minimum, I should be apologizing to him. We are obligated to make sure he's taken care of. Mr. Allen, I'm sorry that things have not been the way they are supposed to be." This is just a magistrate judge in D.C., appointed in 2020. He is, according to a LinkedIn profile and other news reports, he is the first Pakistani-American judge appointed in a position like that. Anything you want to say about this?
Number one, why do we have Pakistani appointed judges? Can we just start with that? Why is that a thing? Can we ask that question? Why is that a thing?
Idols that we won't smash.
Correct. All right. Secondly, gentlemen, it appears to me that the regret here is that he missed. I mean, that.
Well, it's been less than a week and a half, and one of the first things that we see in the legal proceedings here is a judge apologizing to him.
Yep.
You're left asking questions like
Sure
that.
you are. Sure you are. And those are the questions you ask with a broken social compact. I mean, we have a foreigner. We have a foreigner for a judge from a part of the world where a lot of people like us, they would just murder in the streets in cold blood if they could, and too often do. All right. And he's apologizing, and he's comparing it, saying J6 prisoners were not treated this poorly. Are we really playing that card? We're really playing that card. Okay. Hey, you walked into the Capitol dome, didn't have a weapon. The guards let you in, didn't do anything, sat in someone's chair and went to prison. Okay. We're going to play that card.
Yeah. This is, remember why I stopped watching after one episode. Black Mirror.
Yeah.
Because it's all coming true. A serial killer drives up into the middle of a large British city, dumps out a body. No one is there because everyone is TV watching the prime minister bleep a pig. That was real life, and I couldn't stand it then, and it's only becoming more real life now.
It's frankly why they've done a couple of seasons recently. I've not been able to watch them. I'm just like, we have too much of this story in real life. Now I'm broken now. I can't enjoy Black Mirrors. I can't enjoy Twilight Zone episodes because it's just like real talking points now. And this reinforces the take that I had a little while ago on why they were right to go after James Comey in a federal court, in a district in North Carolina over the 8647 stuff, and not over the Russia collusion stuff. I'm just going to tell you right now, if James Comey, I said this, did I not say this because a bunch of people are ticked off that we didn't go after Comey for Russia collusion. Have you seen the jury pool? Have you seen the magistrate pool there in the nation's capital? Example into infinity that we're talking about as we speak. I mean, at this point, James Comey could have just, taken a cannonball and hit Donald Trump flush in the face with it on camera and said, yes, I did it. And I'm not sure that a DC jury would convict that. I mean, that's where we are. It's akin to trying to, hang a Klansman for lynching in the Jim Crow South in another century. And that was Democrats too, but I digress.
Do you know how much what you're saying right now has to do with what we're going to be talking about with the whole honeypot thing? Because the answer is everything.
It all goes back to we have a broken social compact. And we've had this before. And it led to a civil war. That's why we talk about being in a cold civil war now. And then that lingered well into the 20th century and led to the civil rights movement and everything else, because the side that lost there didn't want to acknowledge that it had lost. But I would argue this is what we are living through right now is the most systemic fault line we've ever lived through as a people, including the lead up to the Civil War. And here's why. If you looked at life in Vicksburg versus life in Pittsburgh, if you went to Vicksburg in May and Pittsburgh in May in 1857, and you set the slavery issue aside, or life in Atlanta and life in New York, and you set the slavery issue aside in 1847, 1837, 1857, other than it's probably way hotter in Vicksburg and Atlanta in early May than it is in Pittsburgh and New York quite yet. The slavery issue aside, how would everyday life have really been that much different in the urban sectors of those two regions at that time? Not very much. Not very much difference. The Industrial Revolution hadn't fully taken over yet. You saw a lot of that post-World War II. Post-Civil War, I should say, leading up to World War II. So life in it out now that, listen, whether to treat people as chattel or not, it's a pretty big issue. It led to a war, right? But that issue off the table, everyday life, the values that were led, the churches that were attended, the sermons that were listened to, the families that were attended to and then passed on, was life that much different in Pittsburgh than Vicksburg and in New York and Atlanta? Was it really that much different? No. No, it wasn't. You can go county by county in America today, and it's a completely and totally different value system. Stem to stern, comprehensively. It's a two-tiered system everywhere you go, on both sides. Because the stuff that we're trying to conserve, that we think is the stuff that actually founded the country, they view it as oppressive and fascism. So, county by county in America today, life can be dramatically different in terms of the values that are supported and reinforced comprehensively across the board, not just with a singular issue of existential import. But literally, what is existence itself is up for a debate. School district by school district. Precinct by precinct. So yeah, I think we're more divided now than we even were back then. Next topic, Aaron.
All right, so the man accused of starting the Palisades fire, that's one of the costliest disasters in U.S. history. According to new court filings, he was motivated by resentment for the rich and viewed Luigi Mangione, the suspect in the killing of United Healthcare's chief executive. He viewed Mangione as a Robin Hood-like figure. Now, according to forensic analysis of some of Jonathan Rinderknecht, the 30-year-old accused of starting the fires, forensic analysis of his devices showed he searched for Free Luigi and Reddit's Let's Kill All Billionaires in December of 2024. He's accused of starting the fire, the Lockman Fire in Pacific Palisades on January 1st of 2025, which smoldered before exploding into what would be one of the costliest disasters in U.S. history.
So I saw a term, and I'd not heard this term in years, but I saw Blake Neff from Charlie's show resurrect this term about a week ago. It's called social murder. You guys ever heard this term before?
Nope.
It comes from Marx and Engels. And essentially it is, well, I mean, you depressed the worker so much that you forced them into a position to act out and murder you. So you needed killing. That's essentially what it means. All right, it comes from Marx and Engels, and it's right out of the communist playbook. And it's this idea that it's a righteous societal kill, even if it violates the law, because the person being murdered is a construct of the oppressive, religious, patriarchal corporate system. All right. And so this is, again, further evidence, by the way, Marxism is just is a demonic inversion of literally everything Christianity is. Is there a place in Christianity where we do things that violate the earthly law because they violate the highest law?
No.
Yeah, there is. Yeah. Like, civil disobedience is what I'm talking about. Like when the earthly law violates the highest law, we say we don't do the earthly law, we do the highest law.
No, that's the way I thought you were saying. We don't do things that...
This is an inversion of this. This is where you violate the highest law because you're unsatisfied with the earthly law. and you are a law unto yourself, or ye be like God. That's essentially what this is a version of. Okay. And that's effectively, Aaron, what you just described is the Marxist notion of a social murder. All right.
It's so deep into the water table, though, that you have all kinds of...
That would be shooting at Trump would be that, too.
Non-conservative Christians hating the Jews and all manner of things. They're acting like Marxists because these are the tactics that they use.
Right. And I have no idea how many of those people are actually Christians. I mean, why do you call me Lord if you do not do what I say? I had somebody in my feed today say he's proudly anti-Semitic, and I chose not to respond to him because he has like 30 followers. But I'm like, well, a month from now, people are going to say I'm proudly, trans and I'm proudly homosexual. If you're proud of your sin in public, I promise you're not a believer. I promise you're not. 100% guarantee, right? If the Lord strikes me dead in the next 3 minutes, I'm so confident in that. And if that's the last opinion I ever give, and then poof, next thing I know, I zero out and I wake up in eternity before my Lord, I'm okay with that being my last opinion. If you are publicly proud of your sin, you're not a believer. I don't care what else you claim. I don't care what else you think. I don't care what else you're a part of. If you're publicly proud of your sin, you are not a believer. Because the first step to becoming a believer is you're no longer proud of your sin. All right, that's the first step. All right, that's a key beginning in how this process of new life starts. So if you're proud of your sin, then you're not a believer. You may be a lot of things, but a believer in the Lord Jesus Christ would not be among them. All right, what do you got next?
In Ohio, Daily Wire investigative reporter Luke Rosiak uncovered yet another smoking gun of maybe massive fraud. He found that he says this is the biggest waste, most blatant waste of government dollars in his 20-year career as a reporter. He found that people are getting paid by Medicaid. In many cases, family members are getting paid to cook, clean, and simply keep each other company conversation with zero verification that any work was actually done. In Columbus, Ohio, Rosiak went to an office building with no windows that houses 94 what he says are shell companies that bill the taxpayers just in one location $66 million. Vice President J.D. Vance, the administration's fraud czar, hails from Ohio as well, says his team is already looking into this latest example, we think, of alleged fraud.
All right. So I'll have a take on this after we talk about our friends over at Raycon. I got this note recently from Jacob Miller. He says, hey, I have a Raycon review from my wife. I've been a Raycon customer for years, and my wife knows about them because of how much I've raved about them too. Well, just recently, my wife's AirPods broke, and she wanted to borrow mine at the gym. When she got home, she said that they were great and wished she had a pair like this, which is great timing since I've been looking for a birthday present and her birthday is coming up. She borrowed my earbuds again earlier this week, told me that she had lost them. So I just ordered 2 pairs of the fitness earbuds from Raycon for both of us. Well, yesterday I'm driving my wife's car and quote unquote found the earbuds on the center console. When I confronted her about it, she didn't even look guilty. She just shrugged it off. Thou shalt not steal unless it's Raycon's. Then all's fair in love and war. Listen, this is what my kids do. They just grab them off my counter and they're just like, hey, thanks, Pops. Walk away. Jacob goes on to say, I think it's fair to assume she likes her Raycons. You weren't kidding about people stealing your stuff, your earbuds. No, Jacob, I was not. That literally has been going on in my house for a couple of years now. All right. So Raycon available for you right now. And it's their everyday earbuds. They're packed with upgrades like active noise cancellation and more. All right. Get the everyday earbuds classics. They're the perfect addition to your everyday routine. Just go to buyraycon.com/Steve. Get 15% off. That's buyraycon, RAYCON, Raycon, N as in now. Buyraycon.com/Steve. Steve Open, I should say. And you'll get 15% off. Buyraycon.com/Steve Open. 15% off your Raycons today. All right. Do you guys remember the name Luke Rosiak? The name ring a bell?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because he basically won the Virginia governor's race in 2022. Or 21, I should say, because Virginia's in the off year. He essentially won the 2021 Virginia governor's election for Glenn Youngkin. He He gave Glenn Youngkin, who seems like a decent guy, but is kind of, a 2005, not a communist, not a rhino either, just kind of what a lot of the Republican Party was. Can't we just, manage this thing essentially, and not have to make everything so existential all the time, kind of what the Republican Party was pre-Trump, right? That's kind of what Glenn Youngkin represents. And overall, as governor, he did a fine job. But you also cannot point to a series of legislative advances that are going to live beyond him either. You see what I'm saying? Like the legacy that Ron DeSantis is going to leave behind, even after just his first term, if he had not gotten reelected in Florida, what he had accomplished in his first term compared to Youngkin's one term, because you're term limited in Virginia, the accomplishments would just not be close, right? And so that's one of the reasons why when Democrats then take over in a state like Virginia, they're so quickly able to turn it blue. I mean, even if Byron Donalds somehow managed to lose the next Florida election, so many for governor, so many things that DeSantis has done are already at the statute level finished that it would be a very slow process to try to turn the state back if Donalds were to lose. That's true to some extent in our own state, right? I would put Kim Reynolds right behind Ron DeSantis in terms of the best Republican governors of the last, maybe so far in the 21st century. Fair?
Yeah.
And a lot of what she has done also is at the statute level. So, and I think, by the way, this is another reason why I think a candidate that really makes it clear he's not a fan of our base and doesn't inspire them, like Randy Feenstra, is another problem. Because I think you're going to see a lot of other people like, well, I'm already demoralized. I don't like this guy. We've already accomplished most of what I want to do anyway. So he's going to lose anyway. So I'm just not going to even bother voting for him. And I'll just see in 4 years. And we can tolerate a Rob Sand for 4 years and go back to being I don't know that we can do that. I don't know that is true. But I can see a percentage of the electorate thinking things like that because of all the success we've had. All right. When you don't have a good candidate. And in the case of Virginia, though, Youngkin doesn't have that kind of a record. And so that's why Abigail Spanberger and everybody else was kind of just able to Thanos snap the state about 5 minutes after they took over. And now they've just made it the California of the Atlantic coast now with the vote that you saw 2 weeks ago. Well, Youngkin doesn't even win without Luke Rosiak. Luke is the one that uncovered what was going on with the tranny issue. What was the, I had it on the tip of my tongue. Loudon. He was the one that broke the story of Loudoun County, Virginia, and the assault that had gone on by a guy claiming to be a girl in the schools there that they tried to cover up. And that was the populist issue, and Youngkin was smart enough to hop on the surfboard and ride that all the way to the governor's mansion there in Virginia. But we haven't heard much from him the last couple of years, and I read yesterday, this is why, that he's been working on this story under the radar for quite a long time. Here's my position on all these things. Call me when somebody gets prosecuted. Call me when somebody gets arrested. And just in good conscience, I just can't sit here and get you guys all wound up about something that there's just no shot that we can make happen on our own. I just don't have that in me anymore, And I know I'm supposed to, and the algorithm will reward me for doing it, but I can't. First of all, it's not good for my mental health to get all stirred up about something until people start getting arrested, because then I get upset when it doesn't happen, right? And then secondly, I just, in good conscience, man, I just can't sit here and rant and rave. Show me when the perp walks. When the perp walks start, that's when my coverage of these stories is going to begin from now on. That's kind of where I'm at with this stuff. Maybe that's defeatist. I would say realistic, but you guys tell me.
Well, the problem is we keep letting Luke Rosiak is involved in these stories because we aren't citizens anymore, and we always let things get to the perk buck level until we do something. Being a citizen means not waiting till the 11th hour to be involved. But everybody knows that they can work a con on us on the left. If you're not a Marxist, fine, whoever else you are, what are you busy doing? Because you're going to be taken advantage of over and over and over again. It's guaranteed. It's an absolute promise. If you won't smash these idols and get involved, do your duty. That's the problem.
Ready for this story as well?
You bet.
In Chicago, An alderman is really incensed, very angry that Walgreens is leaving certain parts of the city.
Walgreens should be charged with first-degree corporate abandonment.
Yes.
It should be a crime the way they're treating our elders.
Yes.
It should be a crime the way they're treating our families.
So that alderman's name is William Hall. He's angry. He wants Walgreens to be charged with a crime for leaving. Why is Walgreens leaving certain parts of Chicago? Well, that same alderman explains.
Is it true that folks are stealing? They're stealing everywhere. Because when you cut jobs in people's communities and folks want to figure out how do I provide for my kids or if I can go to a store and steal a loaf of bread. Is stealing right? No. But what's wrong is first-degree corporate abandonment. Because
William Hall, the Chicago alderman, angry, wants Walgreens to be charged with a crime because they're leaving his city, later admitting that they're leaving because theft is a major issue.
Have you tried not being as low-life criminal as you are? That's my suggestion.
Yeah, same answer as my previous one.
Yeah, have you tried not being as low-life criminal?
Yeah.
Have you tried being better parents to your kids? Have you tried being more disciplinarian in the schools? I had a friend of mine, and it's someone you know, by the way. I had a friend of mine tell me a story about taking over. I won't say his name on the air, but taking over as a football coach in an inner city area, and he could not believe, like, absolutely no discipline, like, whatsoever. Any attempt to instill any at all, it was just complete tap out. He's like, yeah, I'm not gonna. I love the game, but even I have my limits. I can't coach kids who just refuse to be coached. And he said, guys just run in and out when they wanted to, not based on what play was called, no structure, didn't want any structure, would just reject it when it was offered. Okay? So my bright idea is to try being less of a low-life thug criminal than you currently are. And I was born to a 15-year-old mom. I lived in multiple trailer parks as a kid. I was on food stamps. I was on welfare. I was on ADC. My ancestors were the greasy wops who lived in the ghettos before you all did, so I don't want to hear it, okay? I ate the government cheese, drank the government orange juice, was on reduced lunch almost all the way until I got into high school. So I don't want to hear it, okay? I don't want to hear it. And my mama still took the comic books that I stole from Hy-Vee and stuffed down my pants and beat me with them in the parking lot for being a thief and told me, you don't need money to have class. Try not raising a bunch of low-life thugs. Try that. All right? Walgreens is not opposed to money, I'm guessing. Right?
No.
And the only color they probably care about is green, I'm guessing.
And they've been worked over by everybody else by
Correct.
A lot of the woke stuff. They want to be there, but now it's just like we
think Walgreens painted the George Floyd blood over the door during the Summer of Love like everybody else did.
Probably.
All right. I mean, the only color Walgreens cares about is green, and your thuggery is costing them green. That's why they left. So try not being low-life thugs. Try that. Try not being criminals. Try being less criminals. Give that one a shot and see if that'll work for you. And I'm guessing they would love to come back and make some money. That's my bright idea for May 5th, 2026 in the year of our Lord. Try being less of a thug.
Basic levels of manly accountability.
Correct.
Would change almost everything.
Have some dads when those boys are like 7, 8 years old and first act out that take them over their knee and break them off something proper. Try that. Just give that one a shot. Okay? Have some coaches that make them run suicides when they don't run the play on the basketball court that he called, okay? Start doing some stuff like that maybe, and I'm sure Walgreens would gladly come back and take your money again because they're not opposed to money. They just don't like losing it because you raised a bunch of thugs.
One last story. You want to feel old real quick?
Why not?
10 years ago today is
there
this
it is.
post
I was
from
thinking
President
about this
Trump.
today, actually.
Happy Cinco de Mayo. The best taco bowls are made in Trump Tower Grill. I love Hispanics.
And
10 years ago today.
I remember losing my mind over this. These guys going to kill us generationally with Hispanics with doing stuff like this. And he actually has the most Hispanic support of any Republican president in modern times. Oh, gosh. Oh, more in a moment.
The Steve Deace Show.
All right, back here on the Steve Deace Show. And my son absolutely raves about the upgrade that we got him earlier this year with his Ghost Bed. It's not just a mattress, it's health equipment. Ghost Bed's engineered cooling helps prevent overheating. That's a major cause of nighttime wake-ups. And precision support keeps your spine aligned so you're not tossing and turning or waking up stiff. So Noah noticed the upgrade immediately. So he was very thankful for that gift. And you're going to be thankful as well. That's why they give you a 101-night risk-free guarantee. I mean, if someone's guaranteeing a bed for 101 nights, that's a third of a year, essentially. They're pretty confident you're going to like it. All right. If you don't feel the difference, though, send it back. And right now, they've got their Memorial Day sale going on here for the month of May, plus an extra 10% off just for being a part of our audience. When you go to ghostbed.com/Steve, use the promo code Steve. That's ghostbed.com/Steve. Promo code Steve for another 10% off on top of their Memorial Day sale this month. All right, back here on the Steve Deace Show, and a new film coming out that we wanted to alert you to. Here's a preview.
I had a battalion commander come to me, and she said, "Dear God, we're killing our own soldiers."
We gather today to honor the incredible service members.
We owe you our thanks. We owe you our respect. We owe you our freedom.
Just as we have gathered before to remember those who served, those who fought, and those who gave their last full measure of devotion for our country.
According to the Associated Press, the Pentagon is going to require vaccines for all service members.
I'm asking the Defense Department to look into how and when they will add COVID-19 to the list of vaccinations our armed forces must get.
The military was ordering service members to take a shot that they could not lawfully order them to take.
Are you choosing to be non-compliant? Get on the floor! Get on the floor!
Leaders did everything legal or illegal within their power to coerce and influence their service members to get the shot.
I'll never forget, I received a phone call from a mother whose son was a Marine at 29 Palms, and she told me her son and 9 other Marines were being held in confinement in the brig until they got vaccinated.
If you don't do what they tell you to do, they will ostracize you. They will destroy your life.
Stop resisting or you will get tased!
They threatened me with Leavenworth imprisonment. They banned me from all Army Public Health Center facilities for 413 days.
I counted over 140 days where I was put into isolation.
Once it becomes normalized in the military, it often very quickly finds its way.
That is just a preview. Film coming out next month, Duty to Disobey. Captain John Frankman joins us now here on The Blaze. And first of all, thank you for your service, sir, and thank you for your time. We appreciate you joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me, Steve. I really appreciate it.
You bet. I saw my buddy Davis Younce in there in that video. Did you guys recognize him? I know he has represented a lot of his fellow soldiers in this fight over the last few years. So kind of give us the genesis story behind this project. Who's doing it? Where did it come from?
Yeah, so I mean, there were over 8,600 service members that were kicked out under the unlawful Biden DoD vax mandate, and you had about 100,000 service members in total leaving because a number of them were considered involuntarily separated. And a lot of us formed this group, and we kind of gravitated towards Children's Health Defense. They published Rob Greene's book, and we were talking about getting a documentary filmed. So Children's Health Defense, they filmed it. They flew a bunch of us out to Austin, Texas, and took the interviews and tried to put a story together that the civilian populace needs to know. They need to understand that this was the biggest infringement on our personal liberties. And although it affected all areas of life, all civilians, it especially affected the military. And there hasn't been the reparation or accountability necessary yet. So we're hoping that this film will bring greater awareness and bring greater change in the future.
Now, this is something that Secretary of War Pete Hegseth has made kind of a cornerstone of his messaging from day one, even did something you don't really see very often from our public officials, and that is after announcing something, then came back a little while later because he was unhappy with how it was being implemented, and further enhanced his original directive on this as well. So, how real have these amended policies been? How more helpful is it than it was before?
Well, let me put this in perspective. You had about, like I said, the numbers, 8,600 kicked out, about 90K who left. So with the 100,000 that were forced out because everybody was coerced, we've only had about 150 people being reinstated so far. That's of statistics maybe a month or so ago. And to put that in perspective, that means that for every 1,000 service members who was forced out over the vax mandate, only 1.5 has come back in. And why is that? Although Pete Hegseth did say it's a priority and did apologize and say that it was unlawful, the process to come back in is overly bureaucratic. The back pay, only those who were kicked out are eligible for back pay, and even that is being subtracted from whatever they made as a civilian. So if you were kicked out and you were owed 300K, but you made 200K as a civilian, you only get 100. And those who kind of voluntarily left, they're not getting any back pay whatsoever. And most importantly, there's been no accountability. And those at the highest levels of the Pentagon right now serving, they were some of the biggest COVID tyrants that were around. So we only have to wait until, hopefully not, there's another Democratic administration, and that's going to mean that they can just go back to the same tyranny, and we're going to have those same leaders in place.
So, Captain, do I hear you saying that when on shows like this, we talk about the swamp, all right, kind of a permanent uniparty, unibrow, bureaucratic class of folks who do everything they can, and you saw this, already here in Trump's second term, comes out guns blazing, and what he can do unilaterally by executive order, and even some things that the court later found he couldn't. He tried doing everything he could, but then you kind of began to see the rate of accomplishment slow to a crawl once it moved beyond what he could unilaterally decree or even, impose with the resources he has, and had to rely on the other two branches of government, the larger bureaucracy that controls government. You've seen things slow down dramatically since about this time last year, for example, when we kind of exhausted the executive order, offensive that he launched after he was inaugurated. Are you saying this exact same dynamic is at work in the side of the Pentagon as well? Just a permanent state of knuckle draggers, essentially.
Absolutely. And I've talked to a number of the people who are on the reinstatement task force. These were people who left the military because of the vax mandate. And they share with me that even though they're in the Pentagon, they're given this kind of authority from Pete Hegseth to get to work, a lot of them look at them sideways. They kind of wonder, why is this special group of people who didn't obey an order, why are they now privileged, coming back in, able to get others in? Because there's just a misunderstanding within the Department of War as to why this order was unlawful, why it was wrong. And everybody who's been in so far just thinks if you're told to do something, you have to do it. They don't quite get the nuance of what a legal and an unlawful order are, even though we take that oath to defend the Constitution and follow the lawful orders of our officers above us. So we're seeing the bureaucracy within the Pentagon itself, and also we're not hearing any members of Congress talk about this. And I was very involved after getting out of the military in writing members of Congress, House Armed Service Committee, Senate Armed Service Committee. Even when they had the majority, even when Biden was president, they weren't having enough hearings to look into this. So I think that you have a lot of kind of bureaucratic knuckle dragging in multiple branches of government, unfortunately.
When I hear you say this, and I want to make sure I apply this disclaimer to this remark. All right, my son-in-law is still in the Guard. He did 2 years in Iraq. My father-in-law, who passed away 4 years ago, was lifetime Army retired, 101st Airborne. My wife was born in Nuremberg, West Germany, while he was stationed there. She's a graduate of Fort Campbell, Kentucky High School, right? And so, I mean, like a lot of families, I have a very strong military tradition in my own household and in my own family, which is why it pains me to say what I'm going to say next. When I hear you say that they are being conditioned to just follow any kind of order, what I hear is that this jab was essentially a consent test. That if we required more radical actions, maybe against your own countrymen later on, who would say yes? Who would say no? Who's really compliant that there is no "so help me God" in any kind of oath anymore? There is no higher law. All All right, that everything now just is by hook or by crook, and whoever has the most badges and the most color on their shirt, regardless of their character, is essentially God. And you must do everything they say. Your conscience is bound to them. There is no more higher law or higher authority. It kind of seems like this, to me, like this jab was used to test that. And because one thing I've noticed is overwhelming amount of the people I've interacted with, and I've covered, I can't tell you how many stories of military people. I wrote books about it. Okay, military people caught up in this vax mandate. One thing most of them have in common is some kind of a strong faith element in the ones that I've talked to. And so I can't help but think that this was some kind of an ultimate compliance test here. And I would really appreciate it if you told me I was wrong.
Well, I don't think you're wrong. And I think that unfortunately the military is a morally weaker place right now because you had that departure of tens of thousands of service members, people of faith, people of moral conviction, people who are able to tell what a lawful and unlawful order is. Now, if we were told to take arms against civilians, I mean, I don't think that we're going to get to that step, but it certainly is the frog boiling in water, just kind of slowly getting hotter. So I think you're going to have a more compliant military force after everything that happened here. So we really need to go back and amend that trend, and that can only be done through accountability, holding those military flag officers accountable. But I know that we're all kind of concerned that that's not going to happen, especially with Anthony Fauci and him that about to expire, the ability to hold him accountable.
What's the remedy you guys want here? The Treasury Department is part of the executive branch. The head of the executive branch is the commander in chief. I mean, why? And when we supposedly, at least I'm told this, I don't see a lot of evidence of it, that we have Republican majorities in Congress. Could we just issue just checks directly from the Treasury, bypass this bureaucracy that you and I are lamenting, and just give these people back pay directly from the Treasury Department? Is that a potential remedy here? What are the remedies you guys want from this film?
Sure, absolutely. So, I mean, awareness to make sure it doesn't happen again. I would like to see more on the medical freedom front. I mean, we have the House, the Senate, the presidency. Why don't we work to put in some kind of a law where you can't mandate anyone to take any shot or any drug against their will? And that shouldn't just apply to civilians, that should apply to military members as well. The back pay, it should be full, and it shouldn't just be for those who were involuntarily separated. It should include those who were voluntarily separated or forced out, and it should be to the full extent. You shouldn't subtract the civilian pay. That can be something that Congress passes. And as far as accountability, what you can do is you can have court-martials for the highest level flag officers who violated the law and were absolute tyrants, made people's lives living hell, drove many to suicide throughout this craziness, and left many, many vaccine injured. So you can do court-martials, you can do grade rank determinations where you examine the flag officers and see what is the last level in which you served honorably, and you can demote them to that position. So there's a number of things that can be done. And another thing is you could mandate constitutional training within the military. We have so many different annual training requirements. Why don't we do something regarding the Constitution, the document we take an oath to support and defend, that'll better allow service members to understand what their rights are and when they're supposed to say no.
Great stuff. People want to see this film when it comes out next month. How can they do so?
They can go to Duty to Disobey Film, and they can .com. They can check out the website. They can purchase a film. It's in a number of different areas within the country, and I urge people to go buy the film. Tell your friends to do so as well. We need to sell 50% ticket sales for each screening to kind of keep it going, and this is going to really help out not just people for understanding it, but the military in general in the future.
DutyToDisobeyFilm.com. That's the website, correct?
Yes.
All right, DutyToDisobeyFilm.com, folks. That's where you're going to want to go. That's DutyToDisobeyFilm.com. Again, Captain, thank you for joining us, John, and thank you for your service all the more.
Thanks so much, Steve.
You bet. God bless. What do you guys think?
That's 2 days in a row where you, once again, have helped somebody shed a spotlight on the fact that we need gallows, we need Nuremberg trials, and we don't feel much closer than we did when you started talking about that, Steve. We're 6 years post-COVID. And I just don't know what it's going to take to listen to men like this, to listen to congressmen like Senator Ron Johnson, not known for histrionics, not looking just to have the spotlight on me. And they're begging and pleading, folks, we need accountability. Otherwise, whatever you think you can imagine is going to happen to us, it's 10 times worse than that.
Yet again, this has the fingerprints all over this of people like Anthony Fauci, people like Debbie Birx, people who were just nobody knew of, and then they became household names, and we had to do all of their edicts over and over and over again, over and over and over again. Follow that to a T. And it's so difficult in the military because on the one hand, you do want you want a military that is, hey, anywhere in the world right now, there's something going down. We need you to get on a plane and go take care of it. And we have shown our military possesses that capability. But then when it comes to experimental drugs, forcing that on an entire population, and our military is huge. That is an entire population. Without any sort of discourse or due course of, hey, can we actually ask questions here about this experimental drug? No, you're in the military. We say jump, you say how high. Again, these decisions were informed. I don't want to give anybody in leadership in the military at the time, I don't want to let them off scot-free. But again, I think the responsibility lands squarely on people like Fauci, people like the entrenched public health bureaucracy. Because as we heard, we think numerous times over the past week, even yesterday, from Senator Ron Johnson, this is their work here. This is their legacy in terms of the public health establishment. People have to be held accountable one way or another. And if you want to cast a broad net, totally fine with that.
You know, I made the point earlier again that going after Comey in North Carolina, where we have a way more favorable legal environment and jury pool, is actually smart and strategic, rather than going after him for the Russia collusion stuff, because that all would be in Washington, D.C., right? Similarly, there is not a more sympathetic face to put on this issue than our veterans, okay? If there was ever a front, and I'm guessing your friends over at Children's Health Defense may recognize this, which is why they're behind this film, but if there was ever a front, you could not come up with a more sympathetic front of people to put as the faces of a medical freedom fight than our veterans.
One would hope.
Okay, and if that's not a sympathetic front, then I mean, at this point, get thee to a nunnery. What are we even doing here, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably about the last sympathetic front maybe we have left is our own veterans. So they're used to being in the firing line. If they're willing to line up and do it again here in the arena as opposed to on the battlefield, by all means, I'd enlist them if they're volunteering and put them in there in that firing line and let them take the slings and arrows because they have the most sympathetic stories of them all. Hour 2 is next. And greetings. Back with Hour 2, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast with Todd Erzin and Aaron McIntyre. I'm Steve Deace. Let us know what you think about what we think by emailing the show. Steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, me, we, and Gab. Follow me at Steve Deace Show on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Deace Show on YouTube. That's at Deace Show on YouTube. Subscribe to the podcast if you love that to make sure you don't ever miss an episode, because why would you want to do that? Your life would not be complete. I hope that's not the case, by the way. But if it is, we'll totally cash in on that. Fair?
Sure. Coattails, baby.
All right. 5-star reviews. We love those as well. Tens of thousands of you have submitted those. Thank you. Please continue to do that, if for no other reason than to boost our already ginormous and obnoxiously large egos. And this part of the show brought to you by our friends over at Beam. If you've not heard of their dream powder, well, let me tell you about it right now, because you're going to sleep through the night. Get the best night's sleep. It'll cost you about $1.25 a night. Would you spend $1.25 for a good night's sleep every night? I kind of think you would. looking at what we're willing to spend money on elsewhere, right?
I think we're going to talk about that soon.
Yeah, we are. Indeed. All right. It's a powerful blend of all natural ingredients like magnesium. What else we got? Reishi, melatonin, and more. All right. Comes in lots of unique flavors. Think of before, our food was so processed, we had to do things like count carbs and people had peanut allergies. When grandma used to give you, and Nanny used to give you the hot cocoa to go to bed back in the day, and now we're like, I can't have any carbs after 6 o'clock. Right? And they were all skinny and none of us are. How did that work? All right. We're trying to figure that out. But you don't have to worry about that with me. It's not loaded with the carbs and the calories that you're concerned about, but plenty of flavor. I like the chocolate peanut butter. Probably no surprise if you listen to the show, but they got more. All right. And get your best night's sleep with something made by Americans for Americans who love America. And that's Dream. Go to shopbeam.com/Steve. Use code Steve and get our exclusive offer for up to 40% off their Dream powder with my discount code Steve. That's up to 40% off, or $40. Yeah, 40% off with my exclusive discount code Steve when you go to ShopBeam, BEAM, as in mom. She'd want you to have a good night's sleep too. Shopbeam.com/Steve, code Steve for the 40% off at shopbeam.com/Steve, code Steve. All right, fake news or not. And it sort of feels like this week is a story my entire career is in the making of. Like this is just kind of the culmination of the era we're in, almost a sunk cost, almost like we just are going to have to tolerate this as a byproduct of the kinds of technology at our disposal these days. Like previous eras had to tolerate certain sunk costs during technological innovations. All right. I mean, I don't know how we stop. You're nodding your head. No, how do we stop someone from doing this? I mean, how do we stop it? How would we stop it?
All of our addictions to technology are not inevitable. They're all a choice. We've got to stop pretending.
Well, that's true. Indulging it is a choice. I don't disagree.
We don't.
I just don't know how we stop. But let's describe the it
first. To stop people spitting and cursing in public. You don't. These things don't even have to exist if they are against. They don't.
Well, we punished them to get them to stop. Some would still do it, but the amount of people that were willing to do it because of the punishment were lower. But it didn't make it totally end.
But these places don't need to even exist. Why does OnlyFans, all these porn websites, why does any of that?
I don't disagree with you on any of that.
Well, just end it.
All right, so let's get into the story then. All right. She was a blonde, bikini clad, and loved firearms. She said she loved Jesus, had big opinions, and rallied millions of fans with her undying love for America. Are you sensing a butt coming on?
In more ways than one, probably.
Yes, indeed. But there was a catch. She was an absolute fake. People were stunned to know the real identity of the person behind a provocative MAGA influencer named Emily Hart. Well, her true identity, the true identity of this person, was recently revealed. After millions of folks like us fell in love with her online, her profile said she was a registered nurse with Jennifer Lawrence. But people mostly stayed on her page to see her ice fishing in a bikini, as one does.
They do. A lot. That's the point.
I've never seen that, ever, but okay. Drinking beer, firing weapons, and sharing her hyper-patriotic views of America. Lonely conservative men flocked to Emily's page to see her iron-hot messages supporting right-wing ideas. If you want a reason to unfollow, quote, if you want a reason to unfollow, Christ is king, abortion is murder, and all illegals must be deported, read one message alongside a post of her with a rifle. Another post said, quote, POV, you were assigned intelligent at birth, but you identify as a liberal, she added. This week, the true identity of the person who created Emily Hart was revealed online. An Indian man named Sam. An Indian man named Sam. Sam spoke to Wired and said Emily was nothing more than an AI-generated character who helped him make money to tide him over through medical school. The 22-year-old orthopedic surgeon in training said he was hustling for cash, so he turned to Google's Gemini AI for advice. This is apparently going to have all of Todd's laments in one story. Hoping to save enough money to move to the U.S. after his graduation, call Sarah Gonzalez. Future H-1B visa abuse in progress. Hoping to save enough money to move to the U.S. after his graduation, Sam decided to use AI to invent, quote, a hot girl that targets the MAGA conservative niche. He came up with the idea after the software showed him that the conservative audience, especially older men in the U.S., had higher disposable incomes and were likely to be more loyal. He says, quote, every day I'd write something pro-Christian, pro-Second Amendment, pro-life, anti-abortion, anti-woke, and anti-immigration. And my page just blew up with 10,000 followers in just 1 month. The med student cashed in on Emily's all-American charm by also selling MAGA-themed T-shirts. He also created an account on FanView. I have no idea what that is. This is the first I've heard of it. Which is a paid subscription platform that allows subscribers to access lewd adult content created by AI. So this must be the AI version of OnlyFans, then I'm guessing, is what it is?
Never heard of it.
Okay. For Sam, it didn't take long before the fictional Emily was making thousands of dollars a month for him. He said, quote, I was spending maybe 30 to 50 minutes of my day doing this, and I was making good money for a medical student. In India, even in professional jobs, you can't make this kind of money. I haven't seen an easier way to make money online, end quote. He added. The med student created photos of Emily wearing no clothes using Grok AI and would post them on FanView. Fans on the platform would then send him money for exclusive content and messages. He said, quote, I was basically doing nothing, and I was just flooded with money. The MAGA crowd is made up of some dumb people, Sam said. While MAGA fans helped Sam make extra cash, he still judged them by that quote. Like, these are some super dumb people, and they all fell for it, Sam said. That's a quote. When he tried to create a liberal character to target Democratic supporters, he said it didn't work as well for Emily. Democrats know that's AI slop, so they didn't engage with it as much. I mean, to be fair, they own Silicon Valley, so they would be the subject matter experts on AI slop. Fair? Fair. Yeah. Can't kid a kidder. After building a significant following on Instagram, Emily's profile was taken down from the platform for posting, quote, fraudulent activity. The popular social media network expects content creators to disclose whether their content is AI generated. He says, quote, I don't feel like I was scamming people. But he noted he would have eventually stopped creating Emily Hart content to steer all his focus towards his studies. The floor is open before I direct the conversation. The floor is open.
Well, first, point of order. Are we sure that Sam and this story
Isn't
is
it fake?
real?
I'm not. No, we're not.
Is it like that infinite mirror thing where you just see the same image back? And so now this is, did some poor Russian, artisan make up a story about Sam, the liberal doctor, making up a story about the hot AI?
This is the era we live in. That's not even a troll.
It doesn't have to be.
That's a legitimate question.
It doesn't have to be.
Listen, we played an interview yesterday where Tucker Carlson was showed a clip of him saying out loud why he thought Trump might be the Antichrist. And before the clip played, he denied he ever said it. And then after he watched the clip, said those words never came out of my mouth. And then in the same interview said, we have no idea that Tyler Robinson's father turned him in. And of course we do. So this is the era in which we live. We have watched Candace Owens grow a media empire off of producing absolutely no evidence whatsoever for any of her claims at all, and having all the evidence that has been presented contradict all of her claims in complete and total zero-sum percentages. And that's before we even get to the amount of... Today, Nick Fuentes has a video out. Immigration's not that big of a deal, and I'm really a moderate Democrat. So yeah, you're right to ask that kind of question. Literally, what is real? This could be fake.
Do you remember back in 2023, that account that came out of nowhere on Twitter, then Twitter? And it was an attractive-looking woman. I don't think AI generated. And just posting the most rage-baiting left-wing talking points over and over and over again. I think in a period of maybe 4 to 6 months, that account grew to over 130,000 followers, which in less than half a year, I think is what the time frame was. That's a pretty massive following to acquire. Turns out it was just a fake as well. Just a fake. Now, it was not AI generated. It was actually, ironically, the photograph on the profile picture was some woman in Florida who's actually a Trump voter. Very attractive. But this is taking it to a whole nother level, though. A whole nother level.
Let's set the scene here. I think we are in the midst of what's going to be a prolonged. Now, how prolonged? I'm not going to put a term of service on it. Let's just say this is going to go past 2026. We are in an era of prolonged systemic epistemological retardation. Now, if you don't remember, the term epistemological comes from epistemology, which is essentially the study of how we know what we know. And how do we know what we know is true? I think we're going to be here mired in a prolonged era of systematic epistemological retardation. And I think that a lot of it is the sad but inevitable next step of what postmodernism and moral subjectivism looks like. If there are no absolute standards and there isn't any absolute truth, then the next step would, of course, come to there isn't any truth at all. And it's not a coincidence that the zeitgeist became overcome with postmodernism and moral subjectivism. At the same time, the church was essentially saying, we're just going to take a piece out. We're going to take a generation off. You want something prolonged? How about a generational coffee break from doing our jobs? That's essentially what the church has done in the last generation. We're going to build brands, not a kingdom, and we're just going to, smoke them if you got them. All right, we're on break. We're just going to take the next generation off, and we're not going to vie or contend for the hearts and minds of the people whatsoever, collectively. There's a reason why you guys keep seeing the same clips from like R.C. Sproul, John MacArthur, Fulton Sheen from the 60s. There's a reason why you keep seeing the same clips. How many English-speaking priests in America could produce Fulton Sheen's content today, do you think?
Not many in my experience.
Yep. On our side of the street, brother, we're also tired, boss. Same thing on our side of the street too, G. Okay? That's why a 32-year-old man got shot in the throat. And they're not shooting at many of the folks in the pulpits that thought they were too good for him. That's why. So, the church took a coffee break. Just said, "Hey, you know what? We're out doing our thing. Got a brand to build, Hawaiian shirts to sell. All right, we're going to do that." At the same time, the culture just became completely overrun by postmodernism and moral subjectivism. So, this is the next logical step, especially with these devices, putting more information in front of us than we've ever had in the history of our species. Think about it. Our species couldn't handle, I made a universe for you, and I just need to make sure you guys hold back a tree for me. That was the first key piece of evidence we were given, right? As a species, yes. I made a universe for you. Just leave that tree to me. We couldn't even handle that, right?
Right.
Couldn't even handle that. Very limited message. Pretty simple, right? The whole thing's for you, except this tree's for me. That's mine. Couldn't handle that message, no?
No.
Then how do we handle all the messages in here? that are just beamed into our brains all of the time. How do we handle it? We can't. We're not meant to. We're not made to. We're not transcendent beings. We're not meant to know everything. We're not meant to know as many things as we do. Now, neither side is going to be immune to what I just described. And you're already seeing this. Much of what I'm telling you now, you're going to say in response, because you're my audience. And so you're smart. And you're going to say in response, well, this is already what we're seeing every day. But to some of the people that are not on this show and on other shows like we talk about all the time that are falling for these canards, this is stone tablet level revelation to them. It'll be like, well, you're telling me the weather forecast. You're telling me there's a chance of rain, Steve, after it already rained. That's what you're going to think to what I'm telling you. But outside of some limited enclaves like this is revelation, what I'm about to say next. So why am I saying it to you? Because you need to understand. You know what? Let me do it this way. Here is even though Friday, it's not Feedback Friday, let me share this note that I just received during our show from Brenton, because it's going to make my point for me. It's going to set up my point for me. Brenton writes, yesterday's episode about deconstructionism really hit home. I have several people in my orbit that were once stalwarts for conservatism and are all proclaimed Christians. However, in the last few years, they've gone down the type of rabbit holes that are prevalent on the internet and bro podcasts. Now they've arrived at a place where they find themselves, number one, consistently agreeing with leftists and Muslims. Number two, thinking anything is possible, but nothing is true. Holy cow. Holy cow, Brenton. Props to you. If I come up with anything the rest of my day remotely as smart as what you just said right there, I'm calling it a good day. Because that'll preach right there, brother. Everything's possible, but nothing is true. That'll preach right there. Number three, every issue and conversation goes back to the Jews. Number four, always asking questions, never seeking answers. And you guys know anybody like this? Number five, the first to proclaim how incompetent the government is, but the first to say how everything is a staged false flag and op by the exact same government. It's like Tucker claiming that Trump has supernatural power over people, but apparently not Bibi Netanyahu. Does that make any sense to you? Trump can supernaturally get people to do whatever he wants them to do, except for Bibi, who has control over Trump. And Trump apparently can't get people to supernaturally stop shooting him in the face. Can't get him to stop doing that either. But he has supernatural power over people. If you had supernatural power over people, Todd, where would your priorities might be? Get people who say bad things about me all the time to stop. Might be one of them, right? Maybe get people to keep shooting at me to stop doing it. Would those be some of your priorities if you had supernatural power over people?
The shooting.
You'd probably start there, maybe, right? For sure. Well, you enjoy people saying bad things about you. But Aaron, a normal person.
Shooting, yes.
Aaron, a normal person. You would, start, stop gossiping about me, stop lying about me, stop trying to shoot me. You'd probably start there, right? Probably. Most would. Number 6, forever unimpressed with everything. Like even waving off the success of Artemis 2. They probably just think the whole thing was staged. Number 7, believing motive is men's reasons for everything. Number 8, they're in a darker place where vice, and in many cases alcohol abuse, has taken a far bigger part of their life than virtue. Number 9, patting themselves on the back for being eyes wide open and smarter than everyone else. And number 10, willing to regurgitate the most easy to debunk internet fodder. This is Gnosticism. Marcion had grown to the point that he had a body of believers that were capable at the time of challenging the church. The next great heretic, Arius, his false teachings in a non-viral era without mass media had spread so rapidly, they had to call the Council of Nicaea to challenge it. And the Emperor of Rome had to call the council. The most powerful man in the world said, all right, this Arius guy is just wreaking havoc. We got to settle this. Brenton goes on to say, I initially discounted the behavior and thought it was a passing, edgy, black-pilled phase, but it has seeped into many aspects of their lives. I pray for them and always argue for truth, but it's starting to feel like watching an addict that will only awaken when they hit the proverbial rock bottom. Don't really have a question or a request, but wanted to express appreciation for you guys' stance on the show and the stances you continue to take and how you refuse to budge no matter what it means in the wash for success. Amen. So this sets up what I'm about to tell you next. This era of retardation we're in, neither side will be immune. Here's what it's going to look like, and it already does. On the left, What it looks like is they're going to believe every official narrative uncritically, unskeptically, because they see that it's coming from institutions that their ideology controls. And of course, their own leaders wouldn't want terrible things for them. And so they're only telling them to take 9 booster shots because it's for their own good, of course. They're like lemmings to a cliff, a moth to a flame, or your windshield to a bug. But they're going to take it a step further. They're going to also seek to impose those narratives by any means necessary. You know, like burning down Los Angeles, shooting our political candidates. 1 out of 4 Democrats said during the scamdemic that they were in favor of government taking your kids away if you didn't get them vaccinated with something that wasn't a vaccine. They will seek to impose these things by any means necessary. Now, here's what it's going to look like on the right, and it already does. Significant segments of the right, they're going to reject all of this. But it's not because of objective evidence. The right is going to claim there's not really any objective evidence anymore. Well, I just don't believe the Tyler Robinson narrative because I don't trust the FBI. And Steve, you told me not to trust the FBI. The FBI is not even, it's a local prosecutorial matter. It's the Utah Valley Police are prosecuting Tyler Robinson. It's going to be held in a local municipal court there in Utah. Well, I just don't trust the, okay, now you're like a Jehovah's Witness. I challenged your talking points. You just went right back to your talking points, to your programming. Blinked a few times and just went right back. So the right is going to reject anything that comes from these institutions because they see that they're captured by the left. But it won't be because they've considered the objective information. And this is why when folks, some of you keep coming at me, what happened to you during COVID? I'm the guy that wrote those books on the shelf with your help and Daniel's help. But I'm the guy that wrote those best-selling books up there on COVID on the shelves. How much stuff did we project? How much stuff did we conjure? How much stuff did we guess at?
We didn't have to.
We didn't have to because all the objective information was already there, and most of it came from their institutions. That's why we have more footnotes than pages. And the footnotes do not go back to Alex Jones and Jim Hoft, but to places like, CDC, public health departments in Western countries all over the world, major medical journals. We didn't bring you any secret knowledge. How much secret knowledge did we bring people? None. We brought you objective, fact-based information, which is why so many other people got banned during that era and we did not. We didn't, on purpose, we didn't conjure, we didn't create, we didn't guess. Some of you even got frustrated at me at that time because I was noticeably behind other people who were doing those things. Sometimes they were right, sometimes they were wrong. But here's the thing. I knew that if I was wrong, I was not just going to take my show down, but maybe this entire network. So I had to be right. And every single time. Couldn't be wrong once. Had to be right every single time. I took the facts seriously. I have no means of doing seroprevalence studies, T-cell studies. I have no means of doing these. I used their data. Now, in this era we're in now, you're going to reject all of that, even if it would make your case, without even considering it. That's why I did the exercise last week with Father Trenum. Because if all you know about Father Trenum is, well, I saw him on Tucker Carlson's show and Russia Today retweeted him, so he must be bad, right? I mean, admittedly, those probably aren't great signs right now, probably, right? But then we actually listened to his words. We considered the objective truth, the objective truth, the objective truth, the objective truth of what he actually said. Is that not what we did in this segment last week?
Right.
We considered the objective, or actually his last Theology Thursday. We considered the objective truth of what he said. And we largely came away what? That'll preach. That was good stuff overall. Based on what we know, the context we know, we tend to do, all three of us, pretty much agree with all of it, right?
Yes.
Now, if we just did it based on association, if I told you guys, hey guys, what do you think of a pastor who shows up on Tucker and Russia Today in the span of a month? Your immediate reaction would probably be what? We had trouble in River City, probably. But that's why we consider the objective truth. What's happening with large swaths of the right is they're not even considering the objective truth, only the association. And that's why they're going to seek out increasingly radicalized Gnostic grifters to feed their overall suspicions. Candace's audience doesn't want to know the evidence. Candace yesterday claimed that the Daily Wire canceled, had to get rid of the Crane and Company and canceled the sports show they had. Well, one of my good friends just happens to be David Cohn, one of the co-hosts of that show. And I'm very, very well aware of what happened during the period of time and why they're no longer on Daily Wire and why they're on the On3 network. And it really came down to they just had competing offers of whether to stay at Daily Wire or whether to go to a network that was focused on sports. They made the decision it was probably better off to be overall with a network, since they were a sports show, to be with a network focused on sports. They have a very amicable relationship with the Daily Wire to this very moment. She just made the entire thing up. None of that's true. As his friend, I was helping David navigate that situation privately between the two of us just last year, giving him some of my own expertise of what I know of the industry. That's why I know what went on. And it was nothing what she claimed. Nothing. It doesn't matter, though. Since it feds your suspicions, that's all you care about. And this is what's going to happen on the right. Or what Daniel describes as reactionary retardation. If it comes from something I don't like, I just react to it in a certain way without even considering it. The only vaccine to this contagion is going to be a biblical worldview, which is why we're going to lean into it even more on the show than even we ever have before. The good news is that also is the highest rated content we do right now is biblical worldview stuff. Not that I needed the incentive, but thank you for giving it to me. Because without a biblical worldview, you're going to think either you are, in this day and age, you're going to think either you are the truth or the truth is nowhere to be found. And we're going to have to painfully learn the definition of what it means to be on a narrow road. That's the era we're in, and it's going to last a while. Not go anywhere for a while, grab a Snickers. Gentlemen, your thoughts?
Well, we need to start just checking some boxes about accountability. And here's 4 as it relates to this. Because Sam knew you. Sam had you pegged. All right? Anonymous, alone, indoors all the time, and on technology all the time. Those 4 things, no man in the history of man has been wired by God.
That is 100% true.
To be those 4 things.
And among the most true things you've ever said in the time I've been paying you to say stuff.
But there's a lot of men claiming the name of the Lord who are those 4 things all of the time. And you're the mark.
Very quickly, harder than ever, both in volume and veracity, to suss out what is true in today's world. Ironically, that also means God's word is more relevant than it ever has been.
Correct.
Therefore, if the content you're consuming is not drawing you towards that word, probably go somewhere else.
100% correct. Brilliant.
The Steve Deace Show.
All right, Todd, you ready to talk about Cove Pure?
Always.
So Cove Pure came to us last year. And if you're watching on Blaze TV, you can see right now the video. It looks like a Keurig, fits right there on your counter, right? But this gives you about the purest water you could possibly have in your home. And, with their family still has a lot of their kids at home. So Amy and I, it's pretty much just us now. Everybody's gone a lot. We're gone a lot. So I wanted the thing to get used. So I gave it to you guys last year because you guys are also still a very active family as well that drink a ton of water. So how's it holding up?
It's funny. I've said how we've tried to break it by overuse, even over Easter, bringing extended family and them being fascinated with it. And like even when they weren't thirsty, they just wanted to use it because they thought it was awesome. But my wife, who, it's interesting in the relationship with your better half, how they just see things in a way that is so obvious that you've been missing. And she said, I've heard you do a bunch of these commercials now. Maybe you should talk about how great the water tastes at some point. I was like, that's it. See, but I'm a guy, and honestly, my palate is not the same as theirs. We
thought hose water tasted good when we were kids.
I'm still that guy, and my gals would say they would just be they would be the brutal honest, like you say with like with Noah and other products. They love the water. They absolutely love it. So, and that's 5 of them at various times coming in and using the thing. So, there's not a part of this that is slightly moderately inconvenient. Except the fact that it does not have a tank that is infinite, because we use it so much, we actually have to fill the thing up.
So whether it's fluorides, leads, pharmaceuticals, heavy metals more, CoPure is going to remove 99.9% of those contaminants. And you just heard from Todd, it's going to taste great as well. So don't wait. Get yourself a CovePure today. Use our link at CovePure, C-O-V-E, CovePure.com/Steve. You'll get $250 off. That's CovePure.com/Steve for $250 off at CovePure.com/Steve. All right, do we have anything else? We got rushed there at the end. Before we get to Pop Culture Tuesday, any dangling participles on what we were just discussing with fake news or not? I want to make sure, particularly you, Aaron, because you got rushed there at the end. All right. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add to the point that you were concluding with there at the end of the last segment?
I mean, I think I kind of got what I wanted to say, but just to reset it, because it was kind of rushed. It is absolutely true, and I think you and Todd would both agree to some extent, because the number of times, and I'm not trying to pull your pants down, I think we're just all being honest here. I think you've said much the same thing, so I'm not breaking any confidences here, but the number of times on air and even behind the scenes, Todd and Steve, both of you to some degree have said, I don't know about a particular news story or about a particular narrative. I don't know. More in the last 3-4 years than the ensuing, or the previous, I should say, 5-6 years, even during COVID. Now, that's kind of when it started here. But the number of times we corporately on this show, both on the air and behind the scenes, have said, we don't know about a particular story, about particular orders of facts, it's going up, and it keeps going up, and it keeps going up. Now, as believers, we believe in the God and the truth of the Bible. We also believe that we are called to be stewards of the citizenship that God has given us in this country. Part of that is trying to be well-informed about the day's news, being well-informed about what we're trying to imbibe, what we're trying to consume in terms of facts and figures and things of that nature. So we've got a problem here. We've got a problem. If people like us who do this full-time are increasingly saying, I don't know about this or that or the other thing when it comes to news, what's real, what's not, and we're also called to be good stewards of our citizenship, that seems to be a little bit of a problem. So there are ways that you can sift through this, analyzing human nature, asking critical questions, not accusations framed as questions. Those are some ways that you can use, that you can start to think through the day's news and start to kind of formulate your thoughts and opinions and attitudes therein. But all of this is to say, as I said, and I'll repeat it again, the truth of God's word is more relevant. Not that it's never been irrelevant on any level, but in an age of truthlessness, God's word is more and has to be more relevant to your day-to-day than ever before. And so if you believe everything that I've said to be true, or some degree of true, but on the side of truth, if you believe that we are called to be good citizens and being good stewards of our citizenship means being well-informed, and it's harder than ever before, both in the volume of the news and the veracity of the facts and figures that we've been given to actually be informed, then there's a problem. But if you also agree that the truth of God's word is more relevant than ever before, if you believe in all of that, if you agree with all of that, then therefore, if the content you're consuming that purports itself to be facts, news, analysis of this and any other issue, if it's not drawing you closer to the truth of God's word on a day in and day out basis, then you should go look elsewhere. So that's more meat on the bone of what I was saying at the end.
Well said. And when we first started having Aaron's montage lead off the show several years ago, I mean, originally it was just simply because it was very good content. What's become a value-added benefit is it gives me now another layer of scrutiny of what we're even going to comment on before we go on the air. And just another set of eyes that I trust to verify. I mean, there's been more times than I can count, frankly. I was about to comment on a story, or even did comment on it, and then Aaron either stopped me from commenting on it because he found out it wasn't real, or was able to tell me after the fact it wasn't real so that we could address that. So that's the biggest challenge for me right now is how do I know the information I'm even commenting on is even real? Okay. All right, let's get to Pop Culture Tuesday. And I am not going to enjoy what I'm about to do, but it needs to be done. All right. And hey, Babe Ruth had some 0 for 4s with 3 strikeouts, right?
Yep.
I mean, the greatest hitter that ever lived still failed 6 out of 10 at bats that he had that season, right? Ted Williams? Right. You know, I mean, Greg Maddux won every single postseason start he ever had.
Not even close.
Not even close. He might be the greatest right-handed pitcher of all time, though, maybe. Certainly in the conversation. Yeah. Right? So my point being is nobody's perfect, right? And even the greats can drop a stink brick. Okay? Even the greats, you're like, what you doing? And I want to make sure I make it very clear because as someone that has lived through, unlike a lot of the people that are ripping Angel Studios right now for Animal Farm, I actually have lived through how hard it is to get a film with our belief system from concept to market and to make it financially successful and rewarding to your investors. And honestly, if it weren't for a handful of absolute miracles, like a billionaire I didn't know calling me on a Saturday afternoon once, we could not have possibly made it happen. And so the amount of demonic resistance to letting our belief system get into the storytelling wide end distribution, it's more than I have experienced in the entirety of my political career. So I'm sympathetic to what Angel is trying to do. And I'm also admiring of much of what they have done. I thought they came up with 3 literally great films last year. I think the David film would rank on the high end of Pixar animated films I've ever seen. That's how much of a treasure I think that movie is. And remember, I loved the was it the greatest story ever told? What was the thing they did with Charles Dickens, the animated one, telling the story of Christ and the crucifixion and the resurrection, that animated film last Easter?
That one I've seen, and it was good.
That was good. The David film is a completely different level. So with those disclaimers, let me just say this. This Animal Farm movie is trash. And frankly, I found it to be worse than the pre-reviews that I read. And let me explain why. Because I think it's also important to understand the book Animal Farm and what it's about. George Orwell was not a right-winger. George Orwell was a disillusioned democratic socialist that was very concerned about what he had seen during the Spanish Civil War and then followed by the rise of Stalin. And it infused much of his writings, including his 2 most famous works. This in 1984. In the book tells about how difficult it is for democratic socialism to work. So he's willing to critique his own worldview. And he talked about how difficult it is because of 3 problems. Number 1, human nature. Invariably, those who view themselves as the biggest, strongest, and toughest, signified by Napoleon in the book, they decide, you know what? Why do we have to share with everybody else? We're bigger, tougher, and stronger than you. And it can often, therefore, lead to authoritarianism. And then the animals are getting squeezed from 2 different ends. From the Western powers, the capitalistic countries, they represent Pilkington. That's what Pilkington Farm represents in the book. And they're not intrinsically evil, they just kind of are indifferent. Orwell viewed capitalism as indifferent to the suffering of human beings, that it wasn't necessarily evil, but it was willing to tolerate suffering that it otherwise wouldn't have for a profit motive. That's not necessarily an unfair critique. We've seen some examples of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did we not just talk about one of those with the Pfizer vaccine? Hey, there's billions of dollars at stake, so let's run 100,000 people out of the military, right?
Right.
Yeah. Then there's Mr. Frederick's Farm. And that's just outright fascism. that represents Hitler and fascism in Animal Farm. What is fascinating to me about this film is that the lead character is someone named Lucky, who's not even in the books, and probably was created to try to make the book more accessible to children. But then secondly, Mr. Frederick is nowhere to be found in this story. And instead what it does is it gender swaps Farmer Pilkington to make him look like Glenn Close is doing the voice. And it looks like someone said this to me, and I'd like you nailed it. The spitting image of Elon Musk's mom. They made Pilkington look like Elon Musk's mom, and Pilkington, the capitalist, defines capitalism as, I wiped out all of my competition, and she actually encourages Napoleon to be even worse of a leader than he otherwise was going to be. And the ultimate object of their oppression is a dam, otherwise known as one of the great civil engineering feats in all of human history. How many lives have been saved throughout human history because of dams? How much modernity, like electricity, have we brought to people because of dams? There are people who think building dams is bad, even though it's good for humans because it's bad for animals. They're called PETA. They made a dam the symbol of oppression in this film. Pilkington is the ultimate villain of the film, not Napoleon. Napoleon is largely viewed as a kind of a grifter wannabe, and Pilkington provokes him to become basically the dictator he ultimately becomes. I don't know what the point of this film was. Its concluding point at the end is maybe we all just need to work hard for our friends because they're our friends. I wrote a book about that. It was called Why Thanksgiving. That's what the Puritans originally thought they were going to do. They're going to come here and live out Acts 2 and share all things in common. And half of them starved and died. And they realized, you know what? We forgot we're the total depravity people. We need to incentivize human nature beyond just the goodness of your heart to do the right thing. That's how capitalism was born in our continent. This film is kind of all over the place. I'm not really sure even how it passed the Guild and how it got made. I got to be honest with you. It stands in stark contrast to literally everything else Angel Studios has ever released. Everything else. And the future projects that they were promoting. They've got 2 more movies coming out this year I think look really good. The Young Washington movie, have you heard about this?
I've seen the
trailer for this was dynamite. Yeah. And then a film I did not know about. It's a retelling of Reagan and Gorbachev at Reykjavik.
Yeah, I just saw that trailer.
And that trailer looked really good too. Okay. So when you line up the entirety of films produced by Angel Studios with Animal Farm, one of these things most certainly does not look like the other. I mean, this was just Michael Jordan decided he's going to play baseball. I mean, what are we doing here? You know, this is like Babe Ruth, like, I'm going to join the bowling circuit and take a year off. What are we doing? What is this? George Lucas, I'm going to try musicals. What? This is, it just doesn't fit anything they have done, they have coming up. And it's also not very good. Yet you need to see Animal Farm. Orwell was doing to communism as a liberal what John Lennon was doing to Mao in the song Revolution. Hey, I am a democratic socialist too. I mean, John Lennon wrote Come Together from Abbey Road. That song was written for stoner Timothy Leary's presidential campaign. That's where it originally came from. And Leary, by the way, hated the song and rejected it. And that's why they put it on the album. It was one of their number 1 hits. So John Lennon, as a stoner liberal, was attacking radicals who thought violence was the answer. That's what Revolution is doing. He's a liberal attacking far leftists. That's what Animal Farm is. It's not a right-wing book. It's not a pro-capitalism book. But this goes further than Orwell's suspicion of capitalism. And it makes Pilkington, the capitalist, the singular bad woman. And Mr. Frederick, the fascist, is nowhere to be found as an influence anywhere in the story at all. I just think it took too many liberties with the book and didn't do a good job with it. And I was just deeply disappointed by the story. Before we get out of here, a word about our friends over at Fast Growing Trees. They have the largest online nursery around with thousands of plants and trees. That's why they've got over 2 million happy customers. And right now, you can take advantage of their great deals on all your spring planting essentials, including up to half off on select plants. But if you're with our show and you've never gone to them before, you can take another 20% off your first purchase when you use the code DACE at checkout. That's an additional 20% off at fastgrowingtrees.com using the code DACE. That's fastgrowingtrees.com, code DACE, for an additional 20% off their great deals this time of year. Offer is valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions may apply. Fastgrowingtrees.com, promo code DACE. All right, we've got about a minute. You guys want to take about 25 seconds apiece and react to what I just said?
A lot of sins you just mentioned in there, but one of the greatest ones is them pretending this was a children's movie. It's not a children's book.
No.
There's no point in...
And maybe that's the first sin, is trying to turn it into one.
There's no point in doing that.
Yeah. This is disappointing, obviously. It's one of the great works, maybe in Western civilization. And to make it trite, as Todd just pointed out there, maybe we should have seen this coming fundamentally. If you get the foundation, the cornerstone wrong, this is not a children's story.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that should tell you you're going to be building off of a bad foundation from the word go.
Go hard, Romans 8:28.